Alrighty, so today we are now going to talk about what was supposed to be the defending MLS Cup champion, that is the Columbus Crew not long ago, but obviously nowadays we know that they're no longer the defending MLS Cup champion as the Galaxy, of course, took that crown. And there's really two ways you can look at the Columbus Crew this season. You can look at it in terms of being glass half full with the way that, they won more silverware with winning the Leeds Cup as well, and that they went on a memorable run in the CONCACAF Champions Cup that is going to go down as one of the greatest run we have ever seen an MLS team do so, especially the team that they were able to beat, beating the two giant of those Monterrey team in Liga MX in both Tigres and Rayados, something that nobody would have thought that Columbus were able to do so. But then you can also look at it as a glass half empty of the fact that it kind of felt like there could have been more for this Columbus Crew team. I mean, the memorable run I talk about in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. Well, unfortunately, it's not going to be remembered in terms of them getting at the top of the mountaintop like Seattle did a couple of years of winning the whole thing because they lost in the final against Pachuca, and then when you also look at in terms their league phase, I mean, eventually they kind of ran out of gas late in the game, and said this before. When you play in so many competition as the Columbus Crew has done throughout the season, you're gonna eventually ran out of gas, and even with the depth that this team has had, we kind of saw it in the latter part of the season, especially in that shock loss against the Red Bulls. And again, if it wasn't for Atlanta United beating Inter Miami of what probably is the greatest upset we have ever seen in playoff history. The upset between the Red Bulls and Columbus, that is not far off as one of the biggest upset we have ever seen in playoff history, and something that nobody saw coming. But with that being said, the Crew did finish with a 19-9-6 record and finished with 66 points. They scored 72 goals this season. Only Inter Miami scored more than Columbus had. We know what Wilfred Nancy can do to the team, and that the whole Nancy ball is probably one of the most entertaining soccer to watch behind maybe what Inter Miami is doing. But they also conceded 40 goals, which is definitely a lot less compared to last season. They definitely been better when it comes to defensively compared to last season. But most importantly, in terms of the goal differential, plus 32. That is the best goal differential of any team in MLS. And as I mentioned, they finished second in the Eastern Conference, and everybody thought that looks like there's a collision course between Inter Miami and Columbus in the Eastern Conference final, but nope. Instead, they got eliminated by the New York Red Bulls in the first round. But on a brighter side, they did win Leeds Cup 2024, which gave them a chance and only going back to the CONCACAF Champions Cup and try to finish the job that was left undone after that loss against Pachuca in the final. But most importantly, they do get a bye in the first round, so they don't have to play until the second round of the CONCACAF Champions Cup this year. Now, looking at the last five seasons for the Columbus Crew, so what's kind of interesting about the last five seasons for the Columbus Crew is it's almost kind of feast or famine when it comes to this team the last five season. When they of course made it to the playoffs in the last five season, yeah, they're gonna go all the way. And that include in 2023 when they did go all the way, winning MLS Cup against LAFC. Finished third with a 16-9-9 record and finished with 57 points. In 2022, this is prior to when Wilfred Nancy, of course, took over for this team, and this was the last year for Caleb Porter. They finished 8th place with a 10-16-8 record with 46 points. They miss out on the playoffs on the final day of the season on decision day, and that season, if you ask a Crew fan, yeah, that was one of the most frustrating seasons for a Crew fan to deal with, considering they were blowing leads left and right in that game. And obviously, Nancy Bo has definitely fixed a lot of that issue. But before that, when Caleb Porter was still in charge of the team, yeah, that was very ugly and very frustrating to see. And it's only fitting the fact that they missed out on the playoffs on decision day because they once again blow a lead against Orlando City on the final day of the season. Before that, they finished ninth with a 13-8-13 record and finished with 47 points. Yeah, they definitely suffer a bit of an MLS Cup hangover that season, and once again did not make the playoffs. Speaking of MLS Cup, they did win an MLS Cup under Caleb Porter in the COVID shortened season. Finished third place with a 12-5-6 record and finished with 41 points. And then in 2019, they of course finished in 10th place. That was the first year in charge of Caleb Porter in this team, and they finished with a 10th position with a 10-8-16 record, finished with 38 points, and obviously did not make the playoffs. Now, looking at the top goal scorer of this team, we got Cucho Hernandez with 19 goals, one of the top five goals scored in this league as well, followed by Diego Rossi with 12 goals, Christian Ramirez with 9 goals, Max Arfson with 5 goals, and Jason Russell also with 5 goals to round up the top 5 list. Top assist leader, you got Cucho Hernandez leading the team with 15 assists, while by Diego Rossi with 11 assists, Max Arfston with 8 assists, Christian Ramirez with 6 assists, and then round the top 5. He's actually no longer with this team, but I want to just mention Yao Yaboa also ends up in the top 5 assist leader with 6 assists. He's now actually with San Diego FC after picked up in the re-entry draft not long ago. Now, looking at the best win of the season, and I could have easily gone with the 3-1 win that they had against LAFC in the Leeds Cup to win the trophy. And there's also been a lot of memorable win that Columbus, of course, had throughout the season. But I'm gonna go back to that Leeds Cup, or not Leeds Cup, I'm sorry, but the CONCACAF Champions Cup run that they had. The fact that they were able to win 3-1 against Monterrey. And keep in mind, when it comes to MLS team facing these two Monterrey team, whether it's Rayados or Tigres, when you play them on the road, it's pretty much a death sentence. Nobody has been able to topple these teams. I mean, rarely any team has been able to topple Tigres as well. And just around before Columbus was able to topple them in El Volcan of all places. But then you have to go face against a Rayados team that was the top ranked team in the CONCACAF region at time, and a team that was pretty much the favorite in terms of winning this competition. And they're just fresh off just absolutely annihilating Messi and friends against Inter Miami. Nobody thought that Columbus would do so, and they did. I mean, they caused a major upset. Definitely call. I think they're become the first team to win two road Liga M two road game against a Liga MX team in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. In MLS history, and that, yeah, I mean, that is definitely going to be a night that Columbus fan will remember for a very long time. Now, when it comes to worst loss of the season, I could have easily chose with the 3-0 loss that they had against Pachuca, where, yeah, that was a game where they were clearly not prepared in that game whatsoever. I mean, some might say that they of course got food poison, and that might be the issue for do so. But instead, I'm gonna actually have to go with the 1-0 loss they had against the Red Bulls again in the first game of the series. I mean, I could have gone with the second game as well, but keep in mind they were on their way of losing that second game if it wasn't for the Red Bulls kind of create a little mini That's So Metro moment of conceding a late goal, and Columbus able to snatch a late goal to force a PK shot, which ultimately they weren't able to win. So, but I'm gonna go with the first game mainly because, yeah, that was the worst home performance that Columbus have played throughout the whole season. They just looked flat in that game, looked very uninspiring. And keep in mind, even though the scoreline was 1-0, Red Bulls could have easily won that game more than 1-0. I mean, that was a game that was kind of at time was kind of almost a microcosm of the Red Bulls second half of the season, unable to show their clinical finishing, and obviously they got away with it because Columbus, again, just that was one of the worst games that they, of course have played. And no, that does not include the 4-0 beatdown that they suffer against Seattle, because that game was just a weird kind of game with Sean Swatsky decided to channel his Mike McGee moment, and didn't quite have the same Mike McGee kind of moment that we saw with a outfield player playing hero as the goalkeeper. But yeah, besides that wacky game, this was really just a game that was a huge disappointment, and also kind of just show a sign that this crew team, it feels like, with how many games that they play, not just this year, but even going back to last year as well, it looks like the fatigue finally has kind of caught up to this team. Now, looking at the average attendance, 20,646, which is good for 8 teams in the league. Every game is pretty much a sellout at lower on field, and this just kind of shows you what a difference it makes when not only a new owner bought in, but also remember the days when the crew was struggling to attract fans, and attendance was a big problem, and Free Prequel was threatened to move this team to Austin. Yeah, those days seems like it's been long past, and that just kind of shows you what a new ownership and also a successful campaign to save the team could look like. Now, when it comes to MVP of this team, I mean, I don't even need to mention who's the MVP of this team. It's got to be Cucho Hernandez. There's really not much I have to say other than the fact that he probably should have won that MVP if it wasn't for Messi being in this league. And again, there is still that controversy of the fact that did Messi really deserve to be MVP even though he played half the season? I mean, when it comes to the stats wise and when you look at the average, yes, Messi number in terms of average is definitely better than Cucho, but in an MVP award, we don't award MVP for half of the season, and I think overall in terms of the overall season, Cucho probably had a better season compared to Messi, especially with the way that Messi was struggling to be on the pitch and were injured at times throughout the season as well. Now, in terms of disappointment, I'm gonna go with Rudy Camacho, and the reason why I gone with Rudy Camacho is not because of the fact that he had a bad season. I thought he had a good season this year as well. That until near the end of the season when things really kind of gone south for this crew team, and there were times where Rudy Camacho commits some bad mistake. Also, at time getting sent off late in the season as well, and just kind of not look like his old self, and that's kind of where we started to see the beginning of the end and the cracks started to show on this crew team. I mean, I think as much as I said that their defense was a little bit better when it comes to them only conceding 40 goals. Oh, there was definitely cracks that was showing late in the season that it looked like we saw something similar to last season where they were making mistakes, and that obviously is part of it in terms of what Wilfred Nancy preached. The way of Nancy ball. It's okay to make mistakes at the back because you can always most of the time either get away with it or able to overcome it with the goal scoring prowess that this crew team has. But yeah, again, Camacho was definitely on the top of the list in terms of one of the reason why the defense kind of started to regress late in the season. Now, when it comes to young player to watch, oh, there's a bunch of young players to watch in this team. I mean, I could have easily gone with Jason Russell Rowe. I could have even gone with the goalkeeper for Patrick Schulte as well. But in the end, I'm actually gonna go with Max Arvston. I think this was the year where he really announced himself. I mean, last year we saw some potential that he could be a good player. This year he really kind of break out, and he's another example of what happened when the Quakes decided to not keep a player and develop them properly because yeah, it's hard to believe that he used to be with the Quakes and he was part of the Quakes academy. Quakes didn't want to sign him to a contract or a senior contract, and the crew basically took over that and able to draft him, and yeah, the rest is history in terms of that. And I have a feeling he's gonna get even more better as as his career can continue, and maybe one of the guy that could be on the list in terms of being sold off next season or even the season after. So what went right for this Columbus Crew team? Obviously, more silverware in Wilfred Nancy era with them winning their second silverware in the Leeds Cup against LAFC. Nancy ball might be the most fun and successful soccer we have ever seen in league history. I mean, the way that Wilfred Nancy played the style of play. Not only it's entertaining to watch, but it's almost at times dominating of how well that they play game after game. And then of course the memorable run that they have in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. But obviously we all know that there are with how memorable that run was in the CONCACAF Champions Cup. What is going to be definitely a little bit sour is the fact that they didn't finish that memorable run with a CONCACAF Champions Cup uh, title, and that's kind of the first thing that went wrong with this team. And again, going back to the glass half full kind of situation, it just feels like this team could have done much better. Could have even be considered as the greatest MLS team of all time in terms of or the greatest MLS season of all time. If they would have won the CONCACAF Champions Cup or even win the MLS Cup as well, kind of doing a treble as well. They came close in terms of doing that as well, and the fact that they weren't able to do so, it's got to be very very disappointing. A lot of missed opportunity to win more silverware, as I mentioned, with the glass half full kind of situation. And then, of course, as I mentioned, the self-inflicted mistake, the defensive regression, and the huge amount of game finally caught up to the Quakes. And we saw it even in the Leeds Cup as well. The amount of times that they commit those self-inflicted mistake, and while it's been able to paper because of how good the attack is, when you make that many self-inflicted mistakes and continue to do so, it's gonna eventually um cause problem, and also started to devalue the confidence level that this defense has had. And as I said, for as the season go continue, this defense for this crew team started to become weaker than what we saw in the beginning of the season. They weren't as stifle as we seen in the beginning of the year. Now, moving forward for this Columbus Crew team, obviously, there's no doubt that they are going to be heavy favorites once again to win MLS Cup and pretty much win a lot of silverware. There, besides Miami, I think this is a team that only is favored to win MLS Cup, but might be one of the favorites in terms of winning the CONCACAF Champions Cup as well. They have the pieces to do so. They've done it before, and there's a chance they can finish the job that was left undone. But that being said, as much as we talk about the success that this crew team has had under Wilfred Nancy, one of the big thing that we might be concerned about the crew, and this is kind of the thing when we always see teams that are successful in this league, is that yeah, it doesn't usually always last long because we've seen before that with the way that this league is kind of a selling league, you're gonna have some of the best player eventually gonna be poached by other big teams, and we're starting to see with this crew team that with the way that there's multiple players that have already linked with clubs in Europe, even some team in Liga MX as well. Heck, there was one time where there was even a link that Columbus might lose their most important player in Cucho Hernandez to Rayados in Liga MX. What I'm trying to say is that, as the old saying goes, nothing lasts forever, and that the crew, even though they have a really strong core, this core might not last as long, and especially with the way the recent signing that they had. I mean, if there's also one thing that kind of went wrong for the crew this season, the signing that they had in the last offseason pretty much was not a factor. I mean, bringing in Mariano and Estroza never really worked out for this team as well, and especially now that they also started to sell some of their depth pieces as well. Yaboa obviously no longer on this team. I think that goes the same for Alexandre Matan. Yeah, you're gonna start to see that maybe this window might not be as long, especially when multiple players are gonna be started to sell off for a huge amount of money. Now, obviously, the crew can definitely reinvest that and trying to reinvest and basically they continue to build on the team and maybe find some good players that can be good replacement. But more times than not, when we talk about that when teams decide to sell off their best talent, uh, more times than not, it's gonna be very hard to try to reinvest, especially replace the players that is missing, and that's gonna be something that the crew might be realize that yeah, they want to make sure that they make this window count. They want to make sure they win as most championship or most trophy as possible, because eventually this window is gonna close. And it's not just players that is looking to be leaving this team. Even the head coach Wilfred Nancy. I mean, there's been a lot of link of him going back to Europe, especially going to France. Looks like Saint Etienne was one of the club that wants to get Wilfred Nancy. And there's no doubt there's going to be more European teams that are looking to get Wilfred Nancy. I mean, European scouts are not only paying attention in terms of how good some of these young players are in MLS, but they also look at coaching too. And when you look at how successful Wilfred Nancy has done doing his time in MLS, both with Columbus and Montreal, it is not surprised that there's a lot of a team in Europe and some of those European scouts saying that hey, this might be the man that can lead us either back to relevance with some of the teams that might be struggling, or a team that could use him to win silverware, and some of the top tier teams in Europe to win those silverware as well. So again, Wilfred Nancy, his time with Columbus might be shorter than we think he is, and if they do lose him, and already as I mentioned with the players that they're going to lose in terms of the core, that could be a huge loss for this crew team, and maybe kind of signal that the window might start to close, and they might go for a transitional period again. And then, of course, the bonus thing that I want to mention, talking about improving the team, I think this team does still needs to improve, and that's kind of the thing I've always said. When it comes to a MLS team, and especially a good MLS team, you can't just stay stagnant, and you can't just continue to just run it back. I mean, we saw it with the Philadelphia Union of them trying to do that approach, and yeah, it didn't work so well for them. So there's no doubt that Columbus want to continue to improve, and they do have some flexibility to do so. They have two U22 initiative, actually technically three U22 initiative, because Kenneth Stroza actually um, left the team. He occupied one of the U22 initiative spots, so they can use that. They can also open a DP spot as well, because I believe Darlington Nagby, who's one of the designated player on this crew team, his contract could be buy down as well. So there's a potential that they could improve, and I doubt the fact that the crew is just gonna stand still. They're gonna continue to improve and look for good talent, because after all, again, this team can get even better than what we saw last season, and there's no doubt that I think heading into next season they're once again going to approach the same way that they did in the previous season. They want to win everything. They want to become the best team of all time in MLS when it comes to a season, that is. But there we have it. That is pretty much it. Looking at the Columbus Crew, and as always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this moving forward series episode. And if you're a Crew fan, what do you think is the MVP, disappointment, young player to watch, what went right, what went wrong, and most importantly, moving forward, how is this team going to look like heading into next season? But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.